In her 20s, Colleen Kurtz went through years-long health struggles, severe fatigue, migraines, joint pain, constant gut issues, and like so many women, she did everything right. She saw specialists after specialists, ran the tests, and still no real answers. Or worse, she was told everything looked normal. And it wasn't until she hit the point of frustration of feeling unheard and dismissed that she decided to take her own health into her own hands. What happened next completely changed the trajectory of her life. Within just a couple of weeks of making intentional changes, she started to feel better, something no one had been able to do for her before. That moment didn't just heal her, it gave her a new purpose. Today, Colleen is a clinical therapist turned functional nutrition practitioner with over 15 years of experience, specializing in helping burnt-out moms who are struggling with fatigue, anxiety, and feeling stuck in survival mode. Her approach is deeply holistic, combining mind, body, and emotional health to get to the root cause, not just manage symptoms. What makes her work stand out is that she's lived it. She understands what it feels like to be dismissed, to be exhausted, and to wonder if this is just how life is supposed to feel like. And now she helps women reclaim their energy and actually feel like themselves again. And in this conversation, we're diving into all of it, from why so many women are told their labs are normal to what your gut symptoms might really be telling you and how to stop guessing and actually start. Colleen, thank you so much for being on today's episode of Her Energy Unlocked. I'm so excited to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
I set out on starting this podcast because I'm on a journey of self-discovery.
Mhm.
And so when I saw your profile online, I was like, I need to have her on because the gut issues are there. I don't know what happened after 45. I'm just so bloated all the time. And it's just so common, but it's just so frustrating. And I feel like we are dismissed when it comes to symptoms like this. And so I'm always interested in learning more about like the gut microbiome and how it plays a part in your health, because I'm a firm believer that a lot of the issues probably start with there. So before we get into it, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your current passion and journey of what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I feel like you touched on so much of it in that intro too, which was just amazing. But it really truly was my own journey and getting dismissed. I mean, it started really heavily in my 20s, but I would say probably even before that. I mean, I was diagnosed with endometriosis at a very, very young age. I later on was diagnosed with PMDD. So really ragey cycles, really painful cycles. I mean, I missed probably a week of school every month just because they were so terrible. I was in so much pain and throwing up and couldn't get off the floor. It was really awful. And I was told to just go on birth control pill. That was the only solution that I was given, which then had all these side effects and things that I was navigating as well. But that stemmed into massive gut issues. My now husband, we were dating at the time. I just remember after every meal just being so bloated. And we joked. I mean, at that point I had like seen all the specialists. I didn't really know what to do. And we joked like, oh, it's my food baby's out now. And I did. I looked like 6 months pregnant after every single meal. My background is in mental health. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have a master's in social work. I spent a lot of time working in hospitals. So I've worked, I always say from the floor up, like from the ER to trauma, med surge. I spent a lot of my career working inpatient psychiatry. So I feel like I've really seen it all at this point. But one of the big things that shifted was not only my health journey, but it was seeing what was going on in the hospital and really how dismissive things were in the hospital. I mean, as a social worker working in the hospital, it was like, okay, your job is to get them out the door, like as fast as possible, get them out the door. And the number of things that I saw just getting missed, other professionals having to catch, having to have people come back because it was just get them in, get them out, and not really taking the person into account. You know, when people would go home and then end up right back in the ER 24 hours later. So that with my own experience and going to all these specialists and everyone just saying like, your labs are normal, everything's normal, to the point where it got so bad that actually they thought, I mean, it was not just gut issues. I mean, I had migraines, joint pain, skin issues, all kinds of things. And I was evaluated for multiple sclerosis and lupus and something else that I mean, I don't even remember at this point. But they were looking at a lot of autoimmune. Everything came back fine, of course, which is great. and brain tumors. So I had to have MRIs, CT scans, to the point where they said, well, at this point, we think you have cancer. And I had swollen lymph nodes all over my body. And they actually did surgery to remove some of my lymph nodes and test them. And I remember sitting in the oncologist's office, and I had already told my parents, like, if this is coming back cancer, I'm not fighting it. I am so done fighting and trying to figure out what the heck is going on that I just don't think I have the fight left in me to fight something like this. And the oncologist said, great news. Everything came back. You're fine. And I started sobbing. I was just like, well, then what is it at this point? This is great that I don't have cancer, but at this point, nobody can tell me. And this was sort of my last specialist that I had. And the combination of all of that just shifted. And I was like, I need to make a change. And that's where nutrition came in.
I can imagine the frustration you felt because nobody had the answers.
Nobody.
So where did you start with your own journey then? So you realized something clicked in that, okay, maybe I need to look at my nutrition and what I'm putting into my body.
Yeah, I actually started with taking gluten out first. That was like the thing that I was like, maybe this is it. I had heard a little bit about it. I didn't actually know what it was. And as I dug in, I was like, oh, my whole diet is pretty much gluten. I mean, I was living off of breads and pastas and everything refined that you can think of. And I started there. And I actually fought it. I went back and forth and thought, well, I really like tacos. Do I really want to cut this out? And, went through it was like a grieving period almost where I didn't really know what to do. And finally I said, I cannot do this anymore. I mean, I was sleeping, 15 hours plus a day. And I mean, I was just miserable. And within 2 weeks of taking gluten out of the diet, it was like a fog had started lifting. It was so amazing, so bizarre. I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't have the knowledge that I have now, but I was able to stop taking a ton of my medications. I was also diagnosed with ADHD at a very young age. Stopped taking my ADHD medication. My migraines finally started going away. So it was a steady process that, lasted beyond 2 weeks. But in those first 2 weeks, my energy came back. It was like a light got turned back on. And I just sort of went with it and started looking into how do I get more information? And that's what landed me back in school to study nutrition and how I got here now.
So you removed gluten, and I'm going to assume started focusing more on whole foods. Removing everything is processed, I feel like. Even the most organic fruit, I'm like, there's some level of processing happening. And it's only when you go to maybe like the garden fresh food and you taste that and you're like, oh, how come I eat the broccoli here and I'm fine? But if I buy the broccoli from the store, same like you were describing, I have a food belly. So you remove gluten, and then did you redo your labs again? Or a lot of women may start feeling frustrated and then start removing things from their diet, but they may not know where to start. So do you recommend people start with doing their labs first or looking at their actual diet? What are kind of the first steps?
Testing for sure. I mean, for me, yes, I took gluten out. I didn't really know much of anything that I know now. And it was just sort of like a gamble. But you're right. I mean, the food that got replaced was fruits, vegetables, and meats. And one thing that I always tend to forget is at the time I was a vegetarian. So I wasn't eating meat. So that was a huge thing that I had to bring back into my diet. I actually didn't have any functional labs done. Nobody did a stool test on me. I had really basic lab panels aside from like the autoimmune and like it went from basic to let's jump into everything super scary. And there was no in between for me. And so that's something that when I start working with clients now, functional labs are a standard in my practice. The reason for that is we're actually getting more information. We're getting to why. So a big one that I do for gut health is a GI map stool test. That's huge. I do hair tissue mineral analysis so that we can look at the actual mineral balance. And it's like looking at your A1C for blood sugar, but an HTMA is looking at a 3-month snapshot of your mineral balance, and it's through your hair tissues. It's really easy to get a sample. It's really easy to send that into the lab, and we get so much information from that. But I also use blood work. Blood work is probably the easiest and the one that more people are familiar with. Standard lab testing is designed to identify disease states, and that's really the difference between functional labs and standard labs. In functional labs, we are looking for what's kind of missing in there, right? Our ranges are very different than standard labs, where instead of it being like everything's fine and now it's a disease state, we're looking at like, hey, here's a really narrow range of where it's actually good. And now we're stepping outside of that and being like, hey, this is actually a warning area and this is where we need to do work. But so often what I'm seeing is, oh, I'm actually like everything looks great on my labs, which is what I got. And then when you look back, it's 1 point from being dysfunction. But because it's that 1 point, it's like, oh, everything's great, right?
And they don't account for your age, weight, your ancestral background. Like, there's a lot where my cholesterol might be higher, but that could be because South Asians are known to have higher cholesterol, where we have a higher predisposition. So, knowing that information, and you're comparing my lab results to somebody who's maybe 6'2", 220-pound
Yeah.
white guy who might have a different ancestral background than me. I can see that frustration. If you're listening right now, what are some red flags that someone should not ignore, even if their labs come back quote unquote normal?
I love that one. So I think the big thing is how are you feeling on a day-to-day basis in terms of symptoms? You know, the labs can tell us so much, but this is a big one where people are actually saying like, I am getting that your labs are normal, but at the same time, I'm exhausted, even though I've slept 8 hours. I'm bloating after every single meal. I'm having stomach pains. I'm irritable. That's a big one. Like we sort of normalize this one, especially for women. Like, oh, you're a mom. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're getting your period. But when we're getting to the point of irritability where we're actually like lashing out at other people, that's a big red flag. Any pain whatsoever. For me, it was joint pain and stomach pain. But, you know, if you're experiencing any sort of pain and it's being dismissed and you're just told like that's normal, it's not normal. Frequent headaches, things like constipation, anxiety, depression, brain fog, all of hair thinning. That's another one. I mean, that's a big sign of thyroid dysfunction. Oftentimes a TSH will get run and it's considered normal and nothing further is investigated in terms of your thyroid. So that's a really big red flag. Feeling worse after eating is another big one. Like I've had people come in and say, I actually avoid eating as much as possible because I feel so awful afterwards. And that's a really big red flag. But I would say one, you know, in terms of actual lab values, you know, if your A1C for your blood sugar is creeping up and they're saying, oh, it's not diabetes yet, that's a red flag as well. Thyroid for me is just such a big one. If you're only getting a TSH, and sometimes it's like TSH and maybe a free T4, but it's not a full lab panel. If you're having a lot of these symptoms that I mentioned and nobody's running antibodies on you, that's a red flag. And also if you're asking questions and getting dismissed and said like that doesn't matter, that's a red flag too. So there's a lot of different ways to experience a red flag.
I'll definitely be leaving all of Colleen's information in the show notes, so feel free to reach out to her to get more information on how to start your journey here. Colleen, IBS is such a common diagnosis. Why do you call it more of a label than an answer?
Oh, I love this question. So, IBS simply describes a collection of symptoms. It tells us that something's happening, but it doesn't tell us why something is happening. So, it's like saying your smoke alarm is loud and going off, but what's causing the fire? And what drives me nuts about IBS is just a diagnosis is we're ignoring the fire and we're saying like, okay, well, like take the batteries out of the smoke alarm and then it'll go off, right? The real issue behind IBS can be so many different things. It's not just one thing. And what the reason behind IBS for one person is going to be different for somebody else, right? And so that's why, you know, I love looking at labs and love putting all these pieces together because the real work is really figuring out what's driving these symptoms. Some of the big things that I see causing the symptoms, which, you know, bloating, constipation, loose stools, it depends on IBS versus IBS-C, but I often see major imbalances in our gut bacteria. So we're doing a GI map stool test. We're looking at the good bacteria. We're looking at the bacterial overgrowth, and there is just not a lot of good bacteria. There's a ton of bacterial overgrowth. I also often see too low stomach acid or digestive enzymes. So we're not even breaking down our food at a top level of digestion, and it's getting to our intestinal tract just in way too big of pieces, broken down improperly. So we're not even able to utilize those nutrients. And then it starts feeding this bacterial overgrowth. Some other links for some people can be chronic stress and nervous system dysregulation. That's a big one too. Our diet, of course, plays a huge role in that. So if your diet is really poor, and what I mean by that is like maybe you're not eating enough, maybe you're eating full on processed food for every single meal. I've been there. We're going to see things like blood sugar instability. We're going to see inflammation. Those can all be players And for myself, I mean, I was on tons of antibiotics for chronic sinus infections, chronic strep infections, all these different things. That played a huge role for me in all of my gut issues. So the same symptom, whether it's bloating, constipation, loose stools, the running to the bathroom, all of this different things, it can have different root causes depending on your own personal health history. And that's why we don't want to guess and be like, oh, it's IBS. So we're just going to like take the batteries out of the smoke alarm and put a band-aid over it and move along. We want to actually figure out why this is happening.
A lot of people are told to just eliminate foods from their diet, like you were mentioning. But why isn't that the real solution then?
Gosh, it's funny. I was actually just looking at a food sensitivity test today that a new client brought from another practitioner. And this one truly drives me nuts. And like, I do think that food sensitivity tests have a place. I think they're massively overused because what we're doing then is restricting. We're taking foods out of the diet, but we're not, again, figuring out why that this is happening. And it can get, particularly if you're looking at, and I'm thinking of some of my younger clients that I work with, it can cause dysfunctional eating patterns to happen as well. Removing foods can temporarily reduce symptoms, but if you're never addressing why those foods are triggering symptoms in the first place, the underlying issue is going to stay there. So eventually, I've had people come in saying there's only 5 safe foods. I can't go out to eat. I can only eat these 5 foods. But what's going to happen is at some point, those 5 foods are going to make you feel just as terrible as all the rest of the foods that you've taken out. And I have this all the time. And they're like, I don't know what to do. My life is miserable. I can only eat these foods. But that fear is not helping us figure out what's going on, right? And it's not a way to live. And that's where some of these dysfunctional eating patterns come into play again, like particularly with some of my young female clients. And it can happen to anyone, but I see this a lot where it starts to become, we get stuck in this cycle of restriction and fear, and it can lead to eating disorders or dysfunctional eating patterns.
Mm. I will say the health and nutrition space is doing a great job marketing a lot of miracle gut supplements. It's, you need to have kombucha, you need to have this, you need to have that. Like sometimes I watch Instagram influencers and they have like 20 pills in the morning, all, just because that, and I always say is, well, why are you taking that particular supplement? Did somebody tell you, or are you just offering a discount code? And, so what are, yeah, because a lot of it is marketing, right? We see so much about miracle gut supplements online. What should people be cautious about when it comes to these miracle gut supplements?
If it promises that it's going to fix every single person's gut issue, run. Because here's the thing. What is happening for one person is not going to be the same for you. And healing is very nuanced. Like I said, with IBS, what's causing one person's bloating is going to be different for somebody else. A supplement that helped your friend could make your symptoms worse if you don't know what's going on. And I've had this with probiotics. I've had so many clients come in and say, I was influenced by somebody and I tried this probiotic that I bought offline and I feel 100 times worse. Granted, I'm on Instagram. I'm talking about all of the things that I personally use. But if you're coming in and saying, I had this person recommend over 20 supplements and I'm feeling worse and I bought this thing online, or if any of these things are there, I would say that's your point where you need to start talking to a practitioner, because there's not a single protocol I've ever written in my life. And I run some pretty heavy protocols for things like Lyme, mold, a lot of different things. And 20 your body can't even handle 20 supplements. So
It's like
you're
I was just going to say, it's like the 20-care skincare routine, right?
yeah.
A lot of that is marketing, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, it is absolutely marketing. People do. They're like, well, so it's just these 5. I'm like, yeah, it's just these 5. Like that we're going to target how your body's digesting. We're going to talk about how to heal your gut, get all of these things turned on. We're going to navigate some of this anxiety that's showed up, and the rest is food. The rest is lifestyle. Like we're going to do the things that need to happen, because I also see people come in on these 20 supplements and I'm like, are you drinking water? And they're like, no, I drink 20 ounces a day. No.
What does a personalized gut health plan really look like in real life?
Different for everyone. That's my best answer, but it usually includes supporting digestion. Most of the people that come to me are coming to me for gut health issues. And, again, when we're running those GI maps, when we're running a hair tissue mineral analysis, we can see in there, and I can see on your blood work too, if you're not digesting your food well, the rest of your body is struggling. So we're going to see that on any of those labs. So we want to start with supporting digestion. And that doesn't start necessarily with a supplement. It starts with how are you approaching your meals, right? Are you rushing through meals? Are you eating in front of screens? Are you eating while driving? Are we really stressed out? I mean, one thing that I've had to do for myself, I have two little kids, and my 6-year-old is the kid that gets up and she's moving around and she's interrupting. And there's a lot of redirection happening at mealtime. And I was walking away from my dinners so bloated and I couldn't for the longest time figure out why. And I kept thinking, am I eating something? Do I need to run an updated stool test? And then I thought, get really simple. And it was the stress of the meal of getting up and down. I'm taking a bite of food. I'm walking around the kitchen. And when I could actually either sit and eat a meal, I wasn't getting bloated anymore. So we have to figure out what does our meal environment look like? Because that plays a huge role in how we're feeling. Sometimes it does mean that we have infections like H. pylori in our gut that we need to actually address that can influence or impact our digestion, low stomach acid, digestive enzymes. So that's a big piece. And we see that in testing. But a good part of it is also replenishing nutrients. If we're not eating a diet that's right for us, if we're eliminating too many foods, if we're under eating, which is a big thing that I see with women, is I'm cutting out more and more calories and I keep gaining weight is a big one. So that is a big part of replenishing nutrients, regulating our blood sugar, nervous system support, and then strategic supplementation. This is, again, not 20 supplements thrown at you. We want to figure out what you need and then go from there through lifestyle shifts, through diet, and then adding in supplements.
For someone listening who feels stuck and dismissed, what's the first step they can take for today?
First step, I would say, if you're feeling really stuck and if you've gone through this process like I did with talking to all of your doctors, and I would say start paying attention. That's the biggest thing is what are your meals like? Are you eating them rushed? Or like I said, all of these different areas that can create stress. Track it. That's the other thing. I'm not a huge fan of tracking your meals and macros every single day ongoing, but there is information in there. If you track for 3 to 4 days and you figure out, am I eating enough? Most women that I work with come in and they're between 900 to 1200 calories and have no idea they're under eating that significantly. What's your energy look like? Your digestion. If you keep a journal of your energy, your digestion, your mood, your sleep, and your food patterns over the course of 3 to 4 days, you're going to get a ton of information. Your symptoms tell a story. And if we start listening, we can start turning on some of the aha moments because we're also trained to dismiss, to push through, to ignore instead of asking questions. And so part of that tracking is start reconnecting with your body again. It's okay to say, this doesn't feel right and this is not normal.
Colleen, if listeners want to connect with you, I know you've got a couple of different programs out there to help people with their gut issues. What is the best way to reach out to you, or what are some of the programs that you'd like to highlight that you offer in your services?
One of the best ways to reach me is through Instagram. That's probably one of the best. DM me. You can ask me a million questions. I love having conversations there. A couple things that I do a gut strategy session. One of my favorite things to do, I just ask that you bring, if you have labs, bring them in. We're going to dig through them. It's a 90-minute session. So we're really going into a lot of information. We're going to look at symptoms. We're going to look at health history and any old labs and just create a plan. I want you to be able to say, oh, here's the connection. That's a really great way to get started. I do complimentary consult calls. So if you're not really sure what direction to go, if you're like, no, I really need more in-depth one-on-one work, or I want something that's a little bit quicker, like a strategy session, DM me, hop on a clarity call. Those are all free and a really great place to get started.
Amazing. And I will be sharing all of your social media on my page as this episode comes out. If you took anything from today's conversation, let it be this: you're not crazy and you're not meant to live with feeling off. So many women are told everything is fine, to just manage symptoms or to keep pushing through. But your body is always communicating with you. And when you start listening to it and actually getting to the root of what's going on, that's where real healing begins. Colleen, this was such an important conversation. Thank you for sharing your story and for the work that you're doing to help women feel seen, heard, and supported in a way so many haven't experienced before. So it resonated with you, send it to someone who needs to hear it, because chances are you're not the only one feeling this way. And if you're ready to stop guessing and start understanding what your body actually needs, make sure to connect with Colleen and explore her work. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and continue on the conversation over on Instagram or TikTok at Her Energy Unlocked Podcast. I cannot wait to hear from you. Until next time, remember, your energy is yours to reclaim, your story is yours to rewrite, and your next chapter is waiting. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.